Okay, so the main last thing that we need to do for this character really is add some sort of control for the eyes. And there's loads of different ways you can do this. You could have some attributes to rotate the eyes. There's some rigs that have a joint in the middle and they have a joint further out, and they have like an IK that can rotate the eye. But the method I prefer the most is just to have an aim constraint. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just show everything. And with these two eyes, I'm going to display the local rotative axes again. And I'll just hide polygons. And all I'm going to do is create two curves again, but snap it to these, rotate it 90 degrees, Control D to duplicate, but snap it again, and I'm just going to hit another one, Control D, move it out, and because we haven't froze transformations on these, I'm going to reset the translate X to 0 so it's in the middle of the grid. So we've got three controls. I'll just show polygons again, and I'll move these just a fair bit away from the eyes, out in front. Okay, so I'm going to switch to the front view and scale these up to some sort of size. It's quite easy to see, so that's okay. And then this middle control is basically going to be to control both controls. So if I just go show none, show NURBS curves, and I'll just sort of shape this. Just to make it look like it's, controlling those two. So it looks like some sort of superhero mask. But essentially it just again visually looks like it's controlling those two, so it's easy to tell. And delete history, freeze transformation on them. And the reason we create two controls, I'll show everything, is you generally, when you're looking at an object, your eyes are both aiming at a single point. So your eyes are really never like this character in default pose, looking straight off into space. Because if you were, you'd either be, have some sort of problem with your eyes, or you'd be looking at something that is extremely far in the distance, that your eyes are almost parallel. But your eyes will never really be parallel when you're quite close to something. You'll always be looking. So if you take your finger and you look at the end of your finger, if you move the finger towards you, you can see you start to blur your eyes because your eyes are both twisting in, they're both aiming at that single object in front of them. But again, for some animation, you might want the character to make his eyes go bog-eyed, and especially for this character animation, this character rig, his antennas are so separate. His eyes, unlike any other character, they're completely separate. They're not on the same skull. They're on separate antennas, so these might be twisted round, looking at different objects at different times. So we just want to split that up. And even for your normal characters, you want to split the eyes to the left and right, just so you've got full control. Okay, so actually I'm just going to make sure this extra to hide group's hidden as well, just so we don't have all that clutter in there. So now what I'm going to do is again do these controls, the colours, display, drawing overrides, left blue, right red, and the middle one yellow. Again, for me, yellow is sort of like globally, it's controlling a large area, so this is controlling the left and the right of the eyes. And what I'm going to do here is take these two, so select everything, history, freeze transformations, just to make sure I've done that, and rename these cc_left_I01. We could be a bit more descriptive like I aim, but I don't really want to be for the animation controls, just keeping them simple, so the animator doesn't have to know how it's connected up, it just wants to know what it does. And cc_I main. and then all we're going to do is take these two and just parent them to the main control. So wherever the main control goes, the eyes are going to follow. You could do similar setup that we've done before, you know, put these in a group, constrain the group to these eyes so you can get it to follow this control, or you could get it to be on its own, but there's not going to be that too many different parenting options that I'm going to animate with this. For the majority of the animation, his eyes are going to follow this, and this control is going to follow his head or it isn't. So having said that, this is going to follow the head or it isn't, so I'm just going to hide the polygons, because again, as he's rotating as you rotate your head about, if you're looking at the screen, as you rotate your head, your eyes are still fixed at this position. So we want to be able to move this character about, but have his eyes still aiming at this point. So that way we can animate this separate and put this on the point of focus. But then there's times where we want it to follow with the head, so I'll do the same. Group this, rename it grp underscore offset, and take the pivot of this, first snap it to the head, and get the extra to hide. I'm going to show that group, and we're going to do the same again. So rendering, hypershade, selecting that tie control, graph, add selected to graph, selecting that group, graph, add selected to graph, and we'll do the same that we've done countless times before, get a blend colour in there, and especially with the eyes, this is one moment where I do like it to have the blend ability, because for a lot of the things the animator would like to preserve the pose, so the arm could be grabbing hold of something, you want to switch it to FK but preserve that pose. So we did that mel script so you can just click between IK and FK and you know it preserves that pose. But for the eyes, I quite like to have it where if he's focusing this on an object, and then instead of you know clicking a button to switch straight to following it, I like to have that blend, because your eyes naturally will blend from the object rotating up to follow something else. So this is one control that I really do like, having that blend attribute in there. And then again, you could use the mel script to just, you know, switch it over instantly and snap it back, so it preserves the position as well. So, okay, so I'm going to take these two again. I'm going to select this eyes control, just go to edit, add attribute, and type in head follow. Minimum of 0, maximum of 1, default of 1. Select it again, graph, add selected to graph. And this is going to control the two blenders again. So take the follow, it's going to be the two blenders. So when we set this to 1, we want the color 1. So 1 means yes, color 1, which is going to be the translate and the rotate. Then the color 2 is going to be 0. Then we can just drop the output into the translate. If we can find it. Translate, and the output of this into, oops, that was wrong. Again, what we can do is just drag and drop this and put it to rotate. So because it's default, translate, rotate and scale are the most obvious, so they're on the list anyway. Okay, so rename these blend color underscore, we don't need a left or right because it's the middle. This is going to be the eye head follow. This is going to be the follow trans. And the follow rotate. Okay, so we can test this out. It's got a value of 1, should be following the head. It's now following the head. Move this about, blend between to 0. And this again why I like this control, because if we blend in here, the eyes are going to be aiming here and then darting across. So I quite like that for the head control. Okay, so resetting these all back to 0. Put the follow to 1 because that's its default. We didn't create the tie control, it was one from previous, so we don't need to parent it. One thing we do need to parent is this group we've made with the eyes controls in it. So go to the global move, control objects, and just hit P to get that in there. Just double check that it's working with the rest of the rig. Is it working with the scale? And again, because it's in the correct group, it's working with the scale, so no need to worry about setting up any of that. Okay, so now what we need is we need to see these eyes. So I'm going to select this mesh. Just going to select this duplicate mesh and click Control H to hide it, which basically just sets the visibility to off. So you could put a 0 in the visibility as well if you want. And I'm just going to select these two eyes and frame them up in the character node. And I don't really want to constrain these eyes because later on we might add some deformers to it. You could say the same thing about this shell, but the shell I just really wanted to keep as a solid shell object, so that way I've constrained on the actual mesh. But we could do the same thing we're going to do here, and what I'm going to do is just hit Control G on both these eyes and center the pivots. Because it's spherical, the pivot will center, you know, in the middle of the circle basically. Okay, so with those, rename them. I'm not putting like an offset, like this is just group mesh left eye, because it's not an offset group or rotate offset group. It's just there so we can constrain the group instead of the mesh, and that way the mesh has got its translates and rotates free, so we could add deformers in there. So what we'll do here, what I'm going to do is actually go to create, and I'm going to create a locator, and I'll go show polygons to hide the mesh, and I vert snap the locator, duplicate, vert snap it again to both these eyes, and I'm just going to move it up so to about 55. Then delete history freeze transformations. So the reason I'm moving these up here is I want these as the up vector, so no matter where these eyes rotate, these locators, you know, I'm going to rotate with it, and they're always going to be they're going to be the top of the eye, no matter how it's oriented. So selecting the eye control, actually I'm going to rename these first. LOC for locator, I'm just got left, just got eye aim up. Control C, paste it over to the right. Okay, and then we can select this eye control, shift select the locator, constraint, parent. And these two, because they're quite similar to the tie controls, I'm just going to put them in the same tie controls group, because we want them to scale with the rig. Because if you think, if we scale this rig up, so I'll just do it now actually, if I scale these up, well, they're going to follow along, but I just want to get them in that same group as well, because there's nothing directly tied to the scale. And they're following up because they're matching the position, but they're not scaling as well. So just to keep it consistent and keep it connected up, I'm going to put them in the group tie offset group. Let's double check that again. So they're following along and it's looking okay. It's also so they can get hidden. Okay, so I'm going to select these local rotative axes, take that off. Just going to collapse these groups so we know what we're working with. And we're going to do the aim constraint. So I'm just going to go to constraint, aim in the option box, reset the settings. I'll tick maintain offset on because I don't want these eyes to move. And because I've vert snapped these to the center pivot of these eyes, I know that these are directly in line. So I know that, you know, this is straight in front of it. So I don't want it to rotate it. I know this is a definite how I like it. So I'm going to tick maintain offset on. Aim vector is going to actually be Z, so you can see Z aiming down the Z axis, Z axis. So not the X, not the Y, I want the Z. The up vector, up is Y, so it's going to be Y again. I want an object up this time, and I want the locator to be the up. So this way, even if the control is facing downwards, we're still aiming at that control. Okay, so that's all set up, and now all I need to do is select the driver, which is this eye control, select the driven, which will be this mesh group, so make sure you're selecting the group, not the actual mesh, and hit apply. Same on the other side, select the eye, select the group, make sure we switch the up vector to the right locator, hit apply. Okay, so now as we start to move these about, you can see, again, this is where rigging is really cool because you start to see the character coming alive. So all we need to do now, if we want this to focus on a point in the middle, you could just move these controls into the same position, and you can see now he's looking at that one point. Because the same control can move them together, you know, could spin them to make him go bug-eyed, and then we've got that head follow, so as we rotate the head, you can see that following along. Now you can see the eyes, so I'll just unhide that mesh from earlier, the skinned mesh, and you can see the rig's following along, the skin's following along, but the eyes are staying up here. So what we actually need to do now is take these two top controls, and I'm just going to hide both mesh, so select the mesh, control H, select the next one, control H. We need these eye controls to follow along with we need the eye mesh to follow along with the eye controls, so all we really need to do here is take the eye controls, control click the eye group, because the aim constraint is on the rotate, we've still got the move, the translate there, so constraint point, make sure constraint it all, do the same on the other side, hit G to repeat last command, and now we'll see, if I just display that mesh, that as we rotate, there we go. So the eyes are following along, controls are following along. We can get that. Yeah, that's looking cool. Okay, so this is bringing quite close to the conclusion of this training. I'll just hide the extra nodes to hide. So we're getting really close to the end now. We've pretty much finished really, because we've got the spine, we've got the arms, the leg, well, don't have the legs, but we've got the IK and FK set up, we've got the antennas set up, we've got the eyes set up, and all we need to do now is just spend a bit of time going through this rig and cleaning up, seeing if there are any areas we've missed, and just go through and start locking some of the attributes that the animator doesn't need to use.